What if I told you it's possible to build stunning, professional-grade cabinets in your garage using tools you already own, saving you thousands of dollars? Well, today, I'm going to prove it.
Do you ever watch a magic trick and think to yourself, now that is real magic? Because what you just witnessed would be impossible to pull off without some sort of universe-altering voodoo? Then the magician shows you how they perform the trick, and it's way more simple than you could have ever imagined. Consistency, when cutting plywood down to make cabinet boxes, is the first trick. But how do the professionals do it? Is it really magic? I'm here to reveal it isn't magic. The trick is to set up your table saw only once for each batch of pieces you will need for the project. Even if all your cuts are off by a fraction of an inch from what you originally planned, it won't matter, because all of those parts of the cabinet will be off by the same dimension, and no one will ever know, I promise. And unlike those overpriced, crappy store-bought cabinets that use plastic fasteners and particle board, I'm using heavy-duty 3/4 inch plywood for these cabinets. We've all heard of KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Constructing cabinet boxes is no different. I decided to start with the cabinet boxes that will hold the mini fridge because I know exactly how big I need to make this box. The sizes of the rest of the cabinet boxes are future Ben's problem to work out, not mine. To start, I measure how wide my mini fridge is. Then I add 3 inches to this measurement to account for the face frame we'll be making later in this video. Simple. Then I cut a piece of plywood down to width using this measurement, and this will become the bottom of the box. Simple. Next, I glued and clamped the sides of the box to the outside edges of the bottom of the box, then used some 16 gauge nails to hold everything in place. I made my cabinets 20 inches tall. Simple. Another trick is to measure near the bottom of the box between the 2 sides you just installed to get the length for the 4 nailer strips you will need to complete the cabinet box. This will ensure the entire box will be square in the end. It's that simple. Next, I cut 4 strips of plywood, all to that length, on the miter saw. Simple. Then, using some more nails and glue, just attach a strip to the front top of the box, 2 strips to the back of the box, and the last strip to the bottom back of the box. Simple to do, hard to explain. Finally, after everything is glued and tacked in place, I like to add a few 2-inch trim head screws to all the pieces to ensure this box is rock solid. It's that simple. Now, you may notice I didn't bother making a toe kick for this box, because that would be hard. In this video, we're keeping it simple. But don't you worry, I have a simple solution for that too later in this video. I promise. Now, if you've watched my videos in the past, then you already know the one thing I try to avoid at all costs is math. I think there's something in algebra called a variable. It's where you take a letter of the alphabet and pretend it's a number or something. I don't really know. But what I do know is I decided to move on to building the cabinet box that will hold the sink. Now, this may come as a complete surprise to some of you, but I made this cabinet box almost exactly the same way I made the box for the mini fridge, minus 2 variables, of course. X equals the width of the box, so it would be large enough to hold the sink, and Y equals where I attach the front nailer strip. The front nailer strip is on the front of the box instead of on the top front of the box to allow enough space for the sink to drop in. Plus, this provides a place to attach the false drawer front to later. Hey, I guess I do know algebra. My teachers always told me that would come in handy one day. And with these 2 boxes complete and set in place, I know exactly how big to make the 2 remaining boxes I need for this bar. Problem solved. And this is where my project manager Lucy finally decided to show up for work and make sure everything fit nice and snug. I know some of you are really concerned right now and messaging me in the comments letting me know that these cabinets are sitting on the floor. But don't you worry, I keep my promises. And earlier I promised I had a simple way to make a toe kick. Do you know that one person who is always overcomplicating everything? Yeah, that guy isn't me. You know what else I don't do? I don't take the opportunity to talk smack on pocket hole screws every chance I get. There are places where pocket hole screws make perfect sense, and this is one of them. So, after getting the toe kick pieces cut to length, I use some glue and a couple of pocket hole screws to make a frame that is 3.5 inches high and 3.5 inches less in width than my cabinet boxes. The cabinet boxes will sit on top of these frames, essentially creating a toe kick. One other note, my wall was too long to make the toe kick out of a single length of plywood, so I split it up and made 2 frames. Now this will leave a very small seam in front of the toe kick, but once it's screwed together and painted, no one will ever notice. Well, you might notice if you come to my house because you're still watching this video, but it'll be our little secret, right? And in return, I won't tell anyone if you subscribe down below so that you can see what secrets I may have for you in future videos.
Now that I know everything is fitting well, what I actually want to do is pull out this toe kick and paint the front of it so that I don't have to cut in around the floor. So I'm going to pull everything off this wall, take this toe kick, get it painted up, we'll put it back in place, and then we can start building our face frame. I'm not going to attach this to the wall or anything, it's just going to be floating. It'll have cabinets on top of it, it's never going to move anywhere. So I'll get this screwed together and then we'll move on to the next part. I have my cabinets back in place where I want, they're all nice and level, they're all flush on front, so I'm going to go ahead and screw them all together while they're still like this with some more 1¼ inch screws. Then we'll attach them to the wall. Now I can attach each cabinet to the wall using some 3.5 inch cabinet screws. One thing to note here, I went ahead and pre-marked all of my studs on the wall so I know exactly where to screw through my nailer strips.
Now, by far, the most intimidating part of any cabinet build for any new woodworker is building a face frame. Any mistake here will be obvious, but don't worry, I've got your back. For starters, I recommend getting larger width boards instead of a bunch of narrow boards if you have to use lumber from a big box store like I did here. Next, rip those wider boards to the width you want your face frame pieces to be. Doing this will provide better consistency and thickness, since all the pieces are cut from the same board. Plus, this helps with edge straightness since you won't be relying on a crappy factory edge. This essentially eliminates the need to buy an expensive jointer and planer, which most people don't have. One note here, I'm painting this face frame, so I'm using Popular, which is really easy to work with and about 1/3 of the price of other options like hard maple.
The first thing I want to do to make this frame is actually measure how long I want each side piece to be. There's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, after that I can measure my top and bottom frame to fit just perfectly so everything lines up with this wall. The second reason is the end grain on the top and bottom. You won't be able to see that. Now this is against a wall, so you wouldn't see the end grain on this, but if you're ever making cabinets, I always like to start with the side pieces first so you don't see that end grain on the end. So I'll go ahead and get that measurement and we'll cut those 2 to length.
Hey Ben, what should we do now?
All right, I've got my 2 end boards in place, and now I can just take a measurement across to get the length of my top and bottom rail, and then we'll cut those to length.
Hey there, can you tell us what kind of fit we are looking for here?
Now I cut this about a 1/16 or a 32nd of an inch bigger, so let's see how it fits. Doesn't even need a clamp to hold it in place. That's just what we're looking for. I also cut this bottom piece. One note here, this is only about 3/4 of an inch thick. It doesn't need to be that thick because the cabinet doors will cover it, and I want to leave room for my toe kick. Now I'll just take this and hook it together with some pocket screws and a little bit of glue. And look, this isn't even clamped on and it's staying up there. Perfect.
One thing I've been fascinated with since I was a kid is the old ship in a bottle trick. I still have no idea how they get an entire ship to fit through that tiny hole in the bottle. Leave me a comment down below if you know how they do it. This next tip is essentially the same. When I need to drill pocket holes in really long boards, I just lay the board down flat instead of trying to stand them straight up into the air. No one will ever know how you were able to pull this off, just like the ship in the bottle trick. The only real difference between this trick and the ship in the bottle trick is that no one will actually care because they will never actually see these screws since they are on the back of the face frame. But hey, a guy can dream, right?
With everything screwed and glued and locked in place, I still need 3 more vertical pieces to separate out my cabinets. So I'm actually going to take my measurement from the very edge here because that will help pull everything into square when I put those 3 pieces into place. And I just want to test the fit of this before I cut the other 2. Nice tight fit. We'll cut 2 more. Now these vertical pieces get put in place with some more glue and pocket screws, but instead of measuring and taking lines, I just like to make some spacer sticks, put one on the top and the bottom, make sure it's nice and tight, and that'll keep everything square. And just a quick test fit before we put in our cross spaces for our drawers. We're gonna have 3 drawers that go here, so we need to add some more slats across this way, and we'll just repeat that same process. I'll take a measurement from the top to get my length, and then use some spacer bars to mark out my face frame for the doors.
And now, under the careful watch of my project manager Lucy, back from her nap, I can get this face frame glued and nailed in place to the front of the cabinet boxes. Luckily, she signed off on this too, so I can keep showing you how to finish this part of the build. This JB wood filler is really easy to use, and it won't shrink. Just cut a piece off, knead the 2 parts together, and press a little into each nail hole to fill them. Then, after some light sanding and some touch-up paint, abracadabra, the nail holes disappear right before your very eyes. We still have a long way to go, but Lucy needs to take another nap. So make sure you're subscribed, because in the next video, we will cut a hole in this butcher block top for a sink, get it finished and installed. We also need to build drawer boxes, install drawer slides. Plus, I have the ultimate cheat code for all of these drawer fronts that you for sure don't want to miss. Go ahead and click the video on the screen right now to see that, and as always, thanks for watching.